Now we are going to study a new topic called quantum mechanics. We have already studied classical mechanics in our class 12, class 11 physics courses, and this quantum mechanics part is completely new to you. As we know that quantum mechanics was developed early 1920s and 30s, and uh, it applied in so many fields like nuclear physics, atomic physics, molecular physics, condensed matter physics, and so on. And it successfully developed theories in explaining the experiments, which was not earlier explained with the help of classical mechanics, and classical mechanics failed to explain those experiments, but quantum mechanics successfully developed a new theory and explained those experiments. Now, what is the difference between the approaches of classical and quantum mechanics? Look here, it is given and 2 points. First of all, classical or Newtonian mechanics. As we know, it is deterministic in nature, and deterministic means that at a particular instant of time, the position and momentum of a particle can be simultaneously determined with equal precision. That you can measure the position as well as the momentum of a body at a particular time with simultaneously with same precision, and with this knowledge, and if we are known that the some initial position or velocity of the particle, and we know the how the external forces are acting over that body, then by using the Newton's law of motion we can determine the future motional characteristic of that body. So the we can say that future state of motion of the body can also be determined by using Newton's law of motion. And uh, most of the cases this classical physics is applied in macroscopic world that is visible in nature. But in case of quantum mechanics, the approach is quite different, and it is not deterministic like classical mechanics. So what it signifies, as you know about Heisenberg uncertainty principle, it states that Heisenberg uncertainty principle that the simultaneous precise determination of momentum and position is not possible for a particle, because that means if we want to measure the position with a good precision, then we are not able to measure the momentum of that particle under motion. So both cannot be probed simultaneously in case of quantum mechanics. As from this statement, it is clear that quantum mechanics introduces uncertainty in measurement of position and momentum. So, as for a particular time the momentum and position are not defined sharply, so the future characteristic of motion also remains uncertain and can't be uniquely probed with this help of quantum mechanics. So this is the main difference with the classical physics, where the initial position and momentum as well as the future state of motion are quite defined. This is not certain in case of quantum mechanics. So quantum mechanics introduces indeterminacy in its motion. So here we only can calculate the probability of finding a particle in a certain position at a particular time, and from that probability distribution we can obtain the approximate average or expectation values of some dynamical observable, which we shall discuss in our future classes. And in addition to this, this quantum mechanics is totally applied for microscopic particles like motion of electrons, protons, neutrons. So this is applicable for microscopic world. And moreover, as we are mentioning about probability, that probability theory plays a central role in describing a system in case of quantum mechanics. So this is the main difference between the classical physics and quantum physics. Now here we can see some of great scientists who developed the quantum mechanics in the beginning of 20th century. First of all, Max Planck, you all know about Planck constant. He was a German physicist. He worked over black body radiation, and his discovery of energy quantum won him the Nobel Prize in the year 1918, and it was the very first findings in the development of quantum theory. Next, you can see Arthur Compton, American physicist. He was also a Nobel laureate of physics, and he discovered the quantum effect, that was Compton effect, and here he shown the particle nature of electromagnetic radiation. And Louis de Broglie, made his contributions to quantum theory by stating that every matter has a wave property, and where he shown wave nature of electron, and which is known as famous de Broglie hypothesis or wave particle duality. And Max Born, German physicist, he developed some calculations and the foundations of quantum mechanics, and he also have some contribution in the other field of physics like solid state physics, optics, but his main contribution was in case of fundamental quantum mechanics, for which he was awarded the Nobel Prize in Physics. He first interpreted the physical significance of wave function, which we shall discuss later. As we know, the Newton's law plays the central role in case of classical physics. Similarly, Schrodinger equation plays the central role in case of quantum mechanics. Erwin Schrodinger, an Austrian physicist, he first developed the Schrodinger equation, and from which the equation can be solved to determine the wave function of a system, and from where we can gather knowledge regarding the energy, eigenvalue, eigenfunction of that particular system, which is very much important. We shall see later. And he was awarded the Nobel Prize in Physics for his discovery. And then you all know about the famous scientist Werner Heisenberg, his famous Heisenberg uncertainty principle, which was published in the year of 1927, where he first demonstrated that the position and momentum cannot be simultaneously determined uniquely. And he developed a separate formalism in case of quantum mechanics and considered one of the further figure of quantum physics. Paul Dirac, he was also a significant quantum physicist. He proposed the Dirac equation and the behavior of fermions, and he also predicted the existence of antimatter. And together with Wolfgang Pauli, you know about Pauli's exclusion principle. He also was a significant person in developing the basics of quantum mechanics. For classical physics, the calculation is quite straightforward. As for example, suppose a particle is moving in one dimension along x axis. It is moving along x axis, and we have to determine its position at some instant of time. Suppose it is x t. At any instant of time, we are going to find out its position, and it can be easily determined by using the Newton's law. As we know, the Newton's law is the central equation of motion for classical mechanics, that is, force is equal to mass into acceleration. And if we have some initial boundary condition, suppose we have some knowledge of the position and velocity at t equal to 0, then by applying this boundary condition and solving and using Newton's equation, we can easily determine x at any instant of time. And when x is determined, the position is determined at any instant of time, we can easily determine the velocity, momentum, kinetic energy, and other all dynamical variables. Thus, classical mechanics is quite straightforward, and Newton's law plays the pivotal role in case of classical mechanics. But for quantum mechanics, the approach is quite different than that of Newton's law in classical physics which played the central role. Now it is no longer applicable in case of quantum mechanics. Here the main equation is called the Schrodinger wave equation, and it is a second order differential equation, as we can see from here. And by solving this equation, we can obtain the wave function psi as a function of position and moment time, that is psi as a function of x and t, and this psi is called the wave function. And similarly, by solving this equation, if we know some boundary condition regarding the wave function, then we can determine psi xt for future time. But here the main difference is that in case of Newtonian mechanics, the dynamical variables was directly calculated by solving the Newton's law. Here, by solving the Schrodinger equation, we obtain the quantity wave function, which is very much new to you, and we shall discuss it about the wave function in our later classes. And look here, the equation is quite complex. It is minus h cut square by twice m, where h cut is nothing but h divided by 2 pi, where h is the Planck constant, you know, it is 6.626 into 10 to the power minus 34 joule second, and m is the mass of the particle, quantum mechanical particle, whose motion is under consideration, that is minus h cut square by twice m del 2 psi del x2. Look here, psi is a function of both position and time, so partial derivative is there. So minus h cut square by twice m del 2 psi del x2 plus v x. V is a potential of the system, and it is a function of position only. Psi xt, this is equal to I h cut del psi del t, where I is root over of minus 1. So by solving this equation, we can obtain the wave function, which plays the central role in case of determination of the dynamical variables for quantum mechanics. Now, what is a wave function? As we have seen, by solving the Schrodinger equation, we can obtain the wave function psi as a function of position and time. Now, the question is that what is wave function? First of all, a wave function provides mathematical description of a particular quantum state of a system. And now, as we mentioned earlier about the famous scientist Max Born, his statistical interpretation says that integral of a to b mod of psi xt whole square dx, this quantity provides the probability of obtaining a particle between some position a to b at a particular instant of time t. And look here in the graph, the psi square, mod of psi square, is plotted against position x. And look here, the area under the curve here gives mod of psi square dx. This mod of psi square is called the probability density of obtaining a quantum mechanical particle at some position x at a particular time t. And multiplying it with the element dx, we can obtain the probability. The probability density multiplied by the element dx gives us the probability. And if we integrate over a to b, the area under the curve from the region a to b, that is marked by green color, this gives us a to b mod of psi xt whole square dx, gives us the probability of finding the particle between a to b at any instant t. Here in this graph, psi square, that is the probability density, is plotted against x. And what is psi xt, mod of psi xt whole square? Psi may be a complex number, that is psi star psi, and psi star is nothing but it is a complex conjugate of psi xt. And what psi star psi gives? It is mod of psi xt whole square. It should be a real number, as you know from your knowledge from complex number, that multiplying a complex number with a complex with its complex conjugate gives the number which is real. So mod of psi xt whole square is real, as the probability should be a real quantity. So mod of psi xt whole square is called here the probability density, of obtaining the quantum mechanical particle at some particular position x at some instant t. So we have seen that mod of psi xt whole square gives us the probability density of obtaining a particular quantum mechanical particle at some position x at a particular time t. So from here we can also obtain the probability by multiplying it with the elemental length dx, and thus psi, the wave function psi xt, is a function of both position and time, provides us the space-time information regarding some quantum mechanical system, and it also carries the information regarding the probability of obtaining the particle at a particular place at any instant of time. So this is the importance of wave function in case of quantum mechanics, and the wave function should have the following characteristics. That is, this function psi must be finite, continuous, and single valued. And if we take first order derivative, the derivative del psi del x, as we have chosen the x axis as our motion, it may be del psi del y del psi del z, that is the first order derivative of psi. It must be continuous and also single valued. Psi should be a square integrable function, and it must be a normalizable function. What normalization means we shall see later. That we have discussed that the property of a wave function, where we have seen that a wave function should be a normalizable function, and now we are going to describe what is normalization of a wave function. And as we have seen from Born's statistical interpretation of wave function, mod of psi xt whole square gives us the probability density of obtaining a particle at any instant at a particular point. And as we know from our knowledge of probability, that total probability of obtaining the particle at some place should be 1. Now mod of psi xt whole square dx, this gives us the probability. Now if we integrate it over the whole space and we put the limit from minus infinity to plus infinity, then mod of psi xt whole square dx, this should be equal to 1. That means the particle must be located at somewhere. So if we consider the whole space, then the total probability of obtaining the particle must be equal to 1. And what is mod of psi xt whole square? As we have seen, this is psi star psi, that is psi star being the complex conjugate of the wave function. And if we take for one dimensional motion, just a particle moving along the x axis, we may represent the probability density as mod of psi xt whole square, and the elemental length dx multiplied with it gives the total probability. Similarly, for three-dimensional case, this elemental length is replaced by the volume element, and then the condition for normalization is minus infinity to plus infinity mod of psi rt whole square dv, this is equal to 1. This is for three-dimensional case. So for normalization of an wave function, that means that psi xt should tends to 0 as x tends to infinity, it signifies. Observables. First of all, what is observable? And observable is a physical quantity which can be measured or probed. That is, suppose position, momentum, these are all observables. And in case of classical physics, the observables are real valued function. And in case of quantum mechanics, the difference is that in case of quantum mechanics, all the observables are represented by some operator, linear operators, which helps to determine some properties of the quantum state. And in case of quantum mechanics, operator plays a significant role. And what every observables are represented and associated with some operator. And as we know, operator are nothing but some mathematical tool which acts over a function and converts it into a new function. Suppose the ddx, it's an operator, and here for an example, it is an operating over a function x cube, and it is becoming 3x square. Here the operator ddx acts over a function x cube and converts it to a new function which is 3x square. And in quantum mechanics, any operator, suppose it is O, is represented by O hat, O cap here. Suppose momentum is observable and the corresponding momentum operator is represented by P cap. Position is an observable and the position operator is represented by X cap for one dimensional motion. So here we are going to obtain the expression for momentum operator and energy operator. First of all, let us see what is the expression for momentum operator. So let us see momentum operator. Now as we know that solution of the Schrodinger equation gives us the wave function for a free particle moving in one dimension, suppose along the x-axis. The wave function is given by psi xt. This is equal to a is a constant e to the power I kx minus omega t. This is a wave function for a free particle. If we call it number 1, and we are going to obtain the expression for momentum operator. So if we take first order derivative, it is a function of both position and time. So if we take first order derivative with respect to x, we have del psi xt del x. This is equal to a I k e to the power I kx minus omega t, taking first order derivative. Now what is a e to the power I kx minus omega t? It is psi xt. So from 1 we have, just substituting for a e to the power I kx omega t psi xt, we have here I k psi xt. So we have del psi xt del x equal to I k psi xt. Now this is suppose equation number 2. Divide both sides of this equation by h cut by I, where h cut is Planck constant. We know Planck constant divided by 2 pi. This is h by 2 pi. We all know. So dividing this equation by h cut by I, next we have this one. Again, from the de Broglie equation of wave particle duality, we know that P momentum is h cross k. This is the relation between the momentum and the wave vector. Now here we have h cut k. This can be replaced by the momentum. As we are considering a particle moving along x-axis and it is one dimensional motion, let us write it as px. So we can write it h cut k as px. So we have px psi xt. This is equal to h cut by I del x of psi xt. So from here it is clear that operating px over a wave function is equivalent to operating h cut by I del x over that wave function. So from this we can say that the expression for momentum operator is h cut by I del x. This is true for one dimensional motion. Similarly, we can find out py is h cut by I del y, pz is h cut by I del z for one dimensional motion. So this is the expression for momentum operator. And next we are going to obtain expression for the energy operator. And taking the same solution of wave function of free particle psi xt a to the power I kx minus omega t. Now if we take the derivative with respect to time of this wave function, it is del psi xt del t is equal to minus, it is minus I omega a to the power I kx minus omega t. Look here again, a to the power I kx minus omega t is nothing but psi xt. So we have minus I omega psi xt. Now multiply both sides of this equation with IH cut. We are multiplying here with IH cut. So IH cut del psi xt del t, this is equal to I square is minus I square omega h cut psi xt. I square is root over of minus 1, I is root over of minus 1, so I square will be minus 1, minus 1 is a plus, so it gives us h cut omega psi xt. And we know from Planck's law that what is h cut omega? E is equal to h nu we know, and it can be represented as h cut omega, where h cut is h by 2 pi and omega is equal to 2 by nu. We all know. So by this relation we can substitute h cut omega as energy, as the energy of the quantum mechanical system. So E on psi xt operating gives us IH cut del t operating over psi xt. So from here we can say that expression for energy operator is IH cut del t. Look here, E operating over psi xt, this is nothing but IH cut del t operating over psi xt. So the expression for energy operator is IH cut del t. So these are the expression for momentum and energy operator. Now the difference between a classical and quantum mechanical observable is that for quantum mechanics the quantum mechanical observables cannot be simultaneously measured with equal precision. As we know, for example, for Heisenberg uncertainty principle, which states that position and momentum cannot be probed simultaneously with equal precision. This relation between the observables in case of quantum mechanics is mathematically expressed by the commutation relation, which is given by, suppose here A and B are two operators, two linear operators, their commutation relation is expressed as inside a third bracket A comma B. This is their commutation relation and it is defined as A B commutation relation is equal to AB minus BA, and whenever this commutation is 0, then we have AB equal to BA, then we say that the operators are commutative, and when AB commutation relation is not equal to 0, then AB should not equal to BA. That means the operators are not commutative. We shall discuss some example on the commutation relation in our next lecture. We have just seen that the commutation relation between two operators A and B, suppose these are two operators, this is equal to AB minus BA. So let us now discuss some example. Suppose first of all we have to find out the commutation relation between x, an operator x, and the operator del x. We have to find out this relation. As we know, the operator should operate on some function. Only operator have no meaning. So we can write this as x del x minus del x of x. Suppose this is operating over a function fx. Suppose this relation is operating over fx. So this gives us this one, as this should operate over some function, and here we are considering the motion along x direction. So for here we are choosing a function of x. Now here we have x del f del x, and from the second term del x of x fx, because x is there. So now x del fx del x, here the multiplication formula, del x of x is 1, so we have fx del x of x and minus x into del fx del x. So now if we consider x del fx del x minus fx del x of x is 1 and minus x del fx del x. So these terms cancel out, so we only have minus fx. So the commutation relation of this one acting over of fx gives us minus fx. So we can say that x del x, this is equal to minus 1. So this is not equal to 0. So these two operators are not commutative. So this is one example of commutation relation. Now let us see an important example of position and momentum operator. What is their value? What is their relation? So, and we have assumed again one dimensional case. Suppose a particle is moving along x direction. So to obtain the relationship, we have to operate it over a function. Suppose this is acting over a function fx. Again we know the expression of position operator and momentum operator is h cut by I del x. So by using these two, we have x px ab minus ba. This is operating over fx. Now putting the values of the operator, expression of the operator, putting here, we have x px is h cut by I del x. Here px x, this is acting over fx. Now if we take common h cut by I, we have x del f del x minus del x of x fx, because x is there. So now again from here we have h cut by I x del fx del x minus x del fx del x minus fx del x of x. This is 1 and these two terms cancels out. This is equal to 1. So we have h cut by I minus fx. So you can say that from this relation x cap px cap operating on fx give us minus h cut by I fx. If we multiply with I here, we can write x cap px cap, this is I h cut, because we know I square is minus 1. So this is the commutation relation. Here look here, that position and momentum operator are not commutative in nature. So from here we can say that this is like famous Heisenberg uncertainty principle, where position and momentum are non-commutative in nature and they cannot be simultaneously determined with same accuracy. Now what is an eigenfunction? An operator, whenever acting on a function reproduces the same function or the same function with some multiplicative constant, then the function is called an eigenfunction of that particular operator, and the multiplicative constant is termed as the eigenvalue of that operator. As we know, an operator acts over a function and produces a new function, and for those cases we get an eigenfunction where an operator acting on a particular function produces the same function or the same function with some multiplicative constant. Then only this equation is called an eigenvalue equation, and the function on which the operator is acting is called an eigenfunction of that particular operator, and the multiplicative constant which we get is a eigenvalue of this operator. Suppose O is an operator acting over a function fx, and it reproduces a function fx with a multiplicative constant a. Then we call this is an eigenvalue equation of that operator O. Fx is an eigenfunction of this operator O, and small a is the eigenvalue. Suppose, for example, a function sin 2x. If we take the operator d2 dx2, that is the second order derivative with respect to x, and we operate it over fx, we get minus 4 sin 2x. That again it produces the same function, that is minus 4 fx. So we can say that d2 dx2 is an operator and sin 2x is an eigenvector of this operator with eigenvalue minus 4. In case of quantum mechanics, each dynamical variable, suppose a dynamical variable a, it is associated with an operator and it is reflected by a cap, which acts over a quantum mechanical state, and the value of the dynamical variable can be proved from the corresponding eigenvalue. So this is the significance of operator in case of quantum mechanics. Now here we are going to give some example regarding eigenfunction of some mathematical operator, and we have defined what is called an eigenfunction of an operator and what is eigenvalue. Now suppose we have an operator, equal to d2 dx2. Suppose we have this operator. Now this operator acts over a particular function. Suppose a function is given fx is equal to e to the power 2x. Now we are operating this operator over this function. Look here what happens. So d2 dx2 operating over e to the power 2x. So we can write it as ddx of e to the power 2x. So this gives 2 ddx of e to the power 2x. Now again ddx of e to the power 2x, this gives us 4 e to the power 2x. Now from here we can see that the operator d2 dx2 acting over e to the power 2x again reproduces this same function with some multiplicative constant. So this satisfied the relation of eigenvalue equation. So from here we can say that d2 dx2 operator has one of its eigenfunction e to the power 2x and the corresponding eigenvalue is 4. So this is one example of eigenvalue equation. Similarly, if we consider same operator d2 dx2 and a function, this one was the first example and now this is the second example, and the function is, suppose it is sin 2x, it is sin 2x, this is a function. So now d2 dx2 is acting over sin 2x. So it is ddx of ddx sin 2x. This gives 2 cos 2x. So 2 ddx of cos 2x. Again ddx of cos 2x is minus 2 to 4. It becomes minus 4 sin 2x. So from here we can say that d2 dx2 of sin 2x is equal to minus 4 of sin 2x. That is, the operator d2 dx2 acting on the function gives minus 4 the eigenvalue, again the same function. So this is also an eigenvalue equation, and sin 2x is an eigenfunction of d2 dx2 with eigenvalue minus 4. But what is the case when the function is sin square x and the operator is d2 dx2? Then what happens? Let us see. d2 dx2 again operating on sin square x. So it is d dx of sin square x means 2 sin x cos x, d dx of sin 2x, sin square x. Now again if we take derivative, it becomes 2 sin x d dx of cos x plus cos x d dx of sin x. Now you can write d2 dx2 of sin square x, this is equal to d dx of cos x is minus sin x, so it is minus 2 sin square x plus 2 cos square x. It is d dx of sin x is cos x. So we have, if we rearrange and take common, sin square x is 1 minus cos square x. If we have some 2 cos square x minus sin square x. So look here, again the operator d2 dx2 operating of sin square x is not giving some constant into sin square x. So this relation is no more true. So for this function sin square x, we can say that this is not an eigenfunction of this operator d2 dx2. So this is not an eigenfunction of d2 dx2. So these are some examples of eigenvalue equation. Expectation values are of prime interest in case of quantum mechanics, because the expectation value of a dynamical variable, as we know, the dynamical variables may be position, momentum, kinetic energy, and the expectation value of a dynamical variable is the average value of the outcomes of experiments conducted over identical systems. Suppose we conduct a similar experiment over a system or identically prepared similar system, and we are going to obtain a value of a particular observable like position, momentum or kinetic energy or whatever it may be. Then the average of this experimental results conducted over identically prepared system are termed as expectation value. And by mathematical description, suppose gx is a function, its expectation value is written in this notation. It's a triangular bracket, and gx expectation value is minus infinity to plus infinity psi star xt g psi xt dx. This is the standard expression for expectation value of any function. And suppose for example position, momentum, energy, these are all expectation values. And look here, whenever we are going to find out the expectation value of an observable, inside the integration you have to put the operator form of that operator associated with that particular observable. Suppose you are going to obtain the expectation value of position, then it should be x expectation value is minus infinity to plus infinity psi star x operator psi xt dx, and for position x is x operator, but for momentum, suppose it is a one dimensional motion, then px expectation value of momentum, it is minus infinity to plus infinity psi star px cap psi dx. Now what is px cap? Here we have to put the form of momentum operator, and it is, we know that p momentum operator is h cat by I del del x. Now put the value there, it should be h cat by I minus infinity to plus infinity psi star del del x of psi dx. Similarly for energy, we know that for energy operator have the value I h cat del del t. Putting the value of that energy operator in this expression, we have, it is I h cat psi star xt del del t psi dx. So this is expectation value, and which is much important in case of quantum mechanics.